everybody online as well. Well, welcome, everybody, okay? Tonight, we're going to talk about leadership. And the interesting thing about leadership, it's easy to explain and hard to define. And I think one of the reasons why I have such a passion for it, I'm actually finishing my doctorate in leadership now. Obviously, I can get a doctorate in leadership to taught how to be a leader, okay? It's probably the one aspect, in my humble opinion, where businesses fail, right? There's not that leadership. People are looking for a vision. They're looking for leaders. Sometimes organizations won't acknowledge informal leaders. They only worry about formal leaders and things like that. So what we're going to do tonight, a lot of give and take, a lot of discussion. You guys are okay to talk and ask questions as we go. That's what I want this whole thing to be about. Okay, very interactive. Anybody who's ever had any of my classes knows, very interactive, okay? And we're going to kind of go through this process to kind of understand leadership. Now, hopefully when you leave here, you have maybe a better or improved view of it. Hopefully you don't go back to work and go, man, my leaders are really not good. Okay? Hopefully we don't go down that road, okay? We're going to take care of that as we go. Okay. So, quote. This is one of my favorite quotes from Margaret Thatcher. Being a leader is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you're one, you're probably not. Okay? You know, what do we think, seriously, what do we think Margaret's saying? What do you guys think she's saying? It's open to your interpretation. What do you think she's saying? Being a leader is like being a lady. If you tell someone you're one, you're probably not.
Walk the talk. It's about recognition.
It's about recognition, right?
You don't become a leader just by getting the title.
There you go. There you go. You don't just. How many people do we know that? Excellent. Quite frankly, that's exactly where I was going. Okay. How many people do we know that because they're in a position of leadership or management, think they're a manager or a leader? Think they're a leader, right? They're not necessarily not. How many times have we seen individuals that are not in an issue of leadership, but are leaders, right? So the reality of it is you have that quiet, cool confidence, that vision, that understanding of what we need to do and how we're going to get there, and actually put all that together to have people want to follow you, right? We don't always have that. Now, one can argue, one can argue, Margaret Thatcher, female prime minister, I don't know if anybody ever saw the movie with Meryl Streep. Tough lady. Talk about a sharp woman that knew how to get things done, right? Not easy to be with what she was in the time frame that she was in. Very, very interesting young lady, very interesting lady. But the reality of it is that's kind of what we're talking about. So as we move forward, okay, let's look at the sentence for a second, okay? Managers have blank, leaders have blank. What do you think are the words that we can... Now, there's no right or wrong answers, okay? In my classes, there's not even right or wrong answers. But what words fill in those blanks? What do you think?
Employees and leaders and followers.
Okay. And with the followers and employees, right?
Leaders have vision.
Okay. What about managers?
They have the title.
Ooh, there you go. Managers have title. Okay. Right? When I put this quote together the first time I did it, okay, I had my own philosophical, I'm sure nobody's on there, okay. I kind of keep looking over my shoulder. I had my own philosophical beliefs on it. And my own philosophical belief was managers have subordinates, leaders have followers. Right? Can you name any great leader that didn't have followers? Good, bad, or indifferent? I mean, whether they're good people, bad people, even evil people. It can be argued they were fantastic leaders because people followed them. In some cases, blindly, right? You think of Jim Jones in Jonestown. People followed him blindly as a leader. Not a nice person, obviously. But at the end of the day, we all know what happened. But the reality of the situation is he led and gave people a vision, and they believed in the vision. So while managers have subordinates, so they tell people what to do, and they direct people what to do, a leader kind of sits back and goes, that's where we're going. And people come along for the ride, right? You feel more engaged with a leader that has vision than a manager being a subordinate, right? Every single day of the week. As you're starting now, the wheels are starting to turn around. It's not my boss, right? Everybody's going, it's not the person I'm working for. I can see that happen. So that's really what we're talking about. Ooh. Oh, they can't hear. Okay, they see they can't hear the attendees. They're not talking that loud. That might be a part of it. Okay. Okay. Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper. You manage things. You lead people. Right? How many times do we feel as employees we're being managed as a thing? Right? And again, Don't you feel that there's that disconnect? And the more that you're thought of as a thing and managed as a thing, right, you start getting this. And it's really hard when you get here to try to pull it back and go to here. Okay? So you have to be able to lead people. And when you lead people, and this is one of the great traits of leaders, I don't know if people have ever really picked up on this, you'll never see a leader paint with a broad brush. How they lead groups of people or individuals or sections of people, very different than how they would do anything else. Because let's face it, we all want to be motivated, we all want a vision, right? Most of us want to follow a vision, but how we're led there is very different. Okay? It's not easy. You can drag people along, right, if you want, but you want them to come along and kind of follow you and be able to move forward. You can't do that by managing things. I have never in my entire professional career managed people like your friends. I have turned around 3 underperforming, failing sales organizations back to back to back. And everybody asks me, how did you do that? I said, ask my people, they did it. I just kind of showed them the way, gave them some direction. Don't we feel more engaged if we're or more involved, if we're engaged with our own decisions, our own destiny, what we're doing in our job? Organization I work for, Mobile Mint, fantastic organization. Okay? If I have an idea and want to walk into the Senior Vice President's Office of Sales, I just knock on the door and say, can I talk to you for a second? Sure, come on in. Very unique organization. It's the perfect place for me because, as you can tell, I'm a little shy. I don't talk too much, and I kind of work around things like that. But the reality of it is, they don't manage things, they lead their people. And they empower their people. The company is completely transparent. They all know what's going on at any one given time. Because we realize that if we let people, if we manage things like that, so we kind of get off the track. So, having said that, what qualities does a leader need? What do you guys think? What qualities do you think a leader has to have?
Good listener.
Love that one.
Clear vision.
I'm sorry?
Clear vision.
Clear vision, sure. Be able to articulate a vision, right? Right? Communicate. Right? Communication, right? Right, Larry? Sure, no doubt about it. Okay. Now, it's interesting. I went to Forbes. This is what Forbes says. Knowledge. There's a really good one from student number 2. It's a really good one. Okay. Forbes said, I'm right at the very edge of the window here, honesty, ability to delegate, right? You have to be able to let things go if you're going to be a leader. It's really hard. I'm a control freak. I gotta let things go, and I learned to finally do that. Communication, sense of humor, right? Confidence, commitment, positive attitude. I'm sorry for being in your window. Let me back up. Intuition, ability to inspire. Okay? When I look at these, every single one of them is important, right? The problem is sometimes we have leaders that go, you know what? I got a great sense of humor. Yeah, but you don't have the rest. You don't have all the packages, okay? That's like having a car with 3 tires. Can't get you where you need to be. Now, some of these might be more important to others. Some of these might be more relevant in your world. Okay? With me, if my leader, my boss, report to the Vice President of Sales Effectiveness, has a phenomenal sense of humor. We get along phenomenally well. But I'll tell you what, when he has to get into intuition, creativity, commitment, he jumps into a whole different gear. He worked for 18 years for Cisco. Okay? I don't know if anybody knows Cisco. To survive 18 years in Cisco, you should get a trophy and a statue put up for you somewhere. I had a friend of mine that actually applied there once. And the person that interviewed him said, we have 2 types of employees here, new and successful. Nothing in between? No. Nothing in between. So the reality of it is, while we talk about leaders, and we talk about some different types of leaders in theory and stuff like that, at the end of the day, there's a blending of what makes a leader a complete leader. And their ability to shift in between those aspects, right, make them who they are. Look at, going back ways, I'm going to show my age now. Look at JFK. Okay? Ability to have vision, ability to inspire, get humor. Okay? Now, let's see part where, as history went on, we kind of found a few different things. But he's right there. He had all those different things, all these great leaders, right? And if you sit back and think of a leader that you admire, I don't want to say guarantee, but I bet you they had a lot of these traits, right? Of all of them, for me, they have to have intuition, and creativity. They have to be able to say, wait a minute, let's go here. Then everything else kind of comes along for the ride, but you have to have those aspects that come along with it as well. Okay? So, leaders aren't born, they're made. And they are made just like anything else, through hard work, and that's the price we'll have to pay to achieve that goal or any goal. So basically what Vince Lombardi's saying is, leaders aren't necessarily born, right? Now, I'm assuming mostly, how many guys are in school now, or finished school here, or going to school, or anything like that, okay? You a different person coming out the other side? Right? Right? No one said to you, hey, you know what? Give up about 20 hours a week of your life, okay? Write papers, do presentations, read books, get a degree. No one said you had to do that, right? But you did. And your goal at the end of the day is your degree. And what a lot of people that go to school, and especially here at WYU, don't give themselves credit for, you led yourself. If you can't lead yourself, how are you going to lead others, right? If you don't have a vision, if you don't have a goal, let's face it, we get creative how we get homework done. Right? I know that happens, okay? I get emails at like 11 o'clock at night, hey, from home, it's all good, okay? We're doing that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're creating who we are as a leader. So leaders aren't necessarily born. And I happen to believe that. I think they're forged. I think if you go through enough tough things in your life, that which does not kill you makes you stronger, right? Now you look back, you probably in your first class said, a 2-page paper in a week? What are you, crazy? 400 level classes. You want 5 pages? How soon do you want it? Here you go. Right? You just get used to getting down those roads. And what you've learned, what you could overcome as an individual, shapes who you're going to be as a leader. Because I can tell you, when you come out the other side with a degree in your hand, okay, companies expect you to be at a higher level than people who don't have a degree. Not that you're better or worse, don't misunderstand anything I'm saying, but they expect you to be able to think at a higher level and process at a higher level. So then you go for your MBA. Now they expect you to think at another higher level. I'm finishing up my doctorate. I don't know if I want to go to that next level they're going to ask for me because it doesn't work for me. I don't want to go quite that far. But the reality of it is you're putting your own goal and your own self together to get where you want to be. And you need to kind of absorb that and realize it because it's not easy to do by your search and imagination.
There's a good question in the chat there.
Can someone be a manager and an effective leader at the same time? Very certain, yeah, very much so. The reality of it is someone can be a manager and not a leader and not a manager, or both. Okay? I really think to be truly an effective leader, you have to be an effective manager. Because you're managing something. You just can't leave it totally hands-off and walk away. But the interesting concept of that is usually we think we have managers and leaders and really not a lot in between. When the fact of the matter is you can be an effective leader and you can be an effective manager. How many times have we worked for organizations where we had a lower level manager that just led entire teams regardless of what the executive level was doing any day of the week? Manager or leader. So yes, to answer your question, that can happen. It actually happens probably more often than not, to be honest with you. Okay? So, let's step over here. If you guys stop looking at the back of my head, you might get the shine, might just blind you all, okay? So, do we talk more about leadership styles than leadership theory? Now think about it. Well, he's a transformational leader. He's a charismatic leader. I get that. But what's the theory behind the leadership? Because you don't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to be a transformational leader today. I'm going to be a charismatic leader today. There's different ways that those things come about. So what we think about is, does not the theory drive the style? And we're going to talk about that. And we show you some stuff and you probably went, wow, we never thought about that. Because again, I'm really into leadership, if you haven't known by now. Okay? Or by accepting a style, are we adhering to the theory? Okay? And what you'll find is, and I hate to say it this way, but leaders that are not really, for lack of a better word, married to leadership, pick a style and say, that's me, I'm transformational. Great, okay, what if you're in a situation you don't need to be transformational? Now what? From something else? Now, you already said you're transformational, kind of married to it, okay? So we're going to talk through this a little bit. Okay, so we have bureaucratic leaders. I'm going to put these two together. We have bureaucratic leaders and charismatic leaders. Okay? Bureaucratic leaders follow rules. We've all worked for one somewhere in our lives, have we not? Follow the rules. Everything's systematic, you know. Color, don't color outside the lines, you know, all that great stuff, okay? Charismatic leaders They really resemble some transformational leaders for the most part, both in the types of leaders and the things they inspire and how they motivate people. But the difference lies in their intent. Their intent is really more focused on charisma. Their intent is more focused on engaging and exciting and motivating and all those things. The problem is, if they don't have the rest of the arrows in their quiver, I can get you all pumped up. But if I can't get from here to there, I'm stuck, right? So you can be as charismatic as you want. People, now, I remember, everybody does remember John F. Kennedy before I go down this road, okay? I'm dating myself now. I want to make sure of that. How does a better appearance make someone a better leader, Hannah? Hannah, I would say no, but unfortunately we live in a world where most people will judge a book by its cover. If you have someone come in dressed like, if I came here tonight in khaki shorts, a Van Halen t-shirt, and my baseball hat, you probably wouldn't take me serious. Am I right? So the appearance, yeah. Look at it this way. Whenever we go for a job interview, we dress up. We go to an important meeting, we dress up. We want to act the part. They always say the clothes makes the man or the woman. You have to fit into the mental image that people have of what a leader looks like, right? Because we have this little box on our head that says, well, that's what a leader should look like. Whatever that is, but most people think, should be wearing a nice dress or a tie, be clean cut, right? They don't think someone's going to come in with long, straggly hair, earrings, and, a Blink-182 hat and say, I'm here to lead. Because it's not going to happen. So, what about being good looking? That doesn't hurt. I don't have that problem. Quite frankly, but, really the reality of it is, I've always looked at it, to be honest with you, leadership's here. It really is. And the first real aspect of it is, if you don't care about your people, I don't care how well you dress, I don't care how good you look, you're toast. If your people go, he doesn't care what happens. Have we ever been in companies where we said, they don't care about it? Are we still in those companies? No. I worked for 3 companies before Mobile Mini. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Because I might as well have been invisible in the organization. Okay? Hannah's. You're welcome, Hannah. Thank you very much. Okay? So we have charismatic leaders. Okay? JFK. We will put a man on the moon by the end of this year. He had no idea if we could do it. Sure as heck charismatic saying it. Little guts, quite frankly, back when that was all going on. Right? Martin Luther King, probably one of the best charismatic leaders on the planet. Read his biography. He will blow you away. Because he took a mess and said, that's what we're going to follow. And it's not going to be pretty. Right? He walked through some serious fire. It cost him his life at the end of the day. Right? But talk about being charismatic. At the same time, not just waving pom-poms and being rah-rah. People believed in where it's coming because he cared about people that came from his heart. Okay? Servant leadership, regardless of the level, who leads simply by meeting the needs of the team. We all have people in our lives that lead because they meet our needs. Right? The one that always pops up when I talk about that, nurses. Right? Talk about I don't want to say unrecognized, but less than garnished, less than appreciated role in this world. Caregivers for people that are home and sick, people that work in hospitals, servant leadership, right? Those types of people. Then we look at transactional leaders. It's great. If we're going from here to here, we need to translate, move things around. I'm on it. Let's go make this transaction happen. Let's change the way we want to do things. Okay? Now, transactional leaders, kind of like transformational leaders, have a challenge. They have to look at people in the eye and say, you know what? Even though this terrifies you, even though I know you don't want to do it, we're doing it anyway. Because we have to. Give you an example. I work for Mobile Mini. Okay? Our president, Eric Olson, brilliant guy. Absolutely, he's forgotten more than I'll ever learn. Okay? Came to the company, hired a senior vice president, Ruth Hunter, of sales and marketing, and realized we had to change our entire sales model. Everything about it. We did it in 2 weeks. 180 salespeople's lives changed in 14 days. Let's go. He also believes whatever you do it quickly. Apparently, okay? But he said we have to do this, right? He changed the way we are and the way we operate. So he became a very competent leader by showing us we can actually do this. So when we look at Pershing, a competent leader can get efficient service from poor troops, while on the contrary, an incapable leader can demoralize the best troops, right? We've all had leaders where we said, wow, you are clueless. Do we follow that leader? No. Worse, do we form informal networks of information to work around the leader, right, who's absolutely clueless? I swear this is God's honest truth. I had a boss that was so out of touch. I don't want to be sarcastic, so I say out of touch. He would come to me and say, hey, remember I was asking you for that? I said, yeah, I sent that to you last week. Don't you have it? I'll send it to you again. I never sent it the first time. Because half the time he never asked me if I even got it anyway, because he wasn't even paying attention if it came through. So I literally got trained by him. I'm not going to do what you want until you ask me the second time. Because he was demoralizing me to do it the first time, right? And think about it. Can you have a definition of leadership with the word demoralization? It's impossible. I'm turning my back. I want to make sure I don't get the chat on. It's absolutely impossible. You can take a great team, a great group of people, be an incompetent leader, and drive it right into the ground. Because what will happen is people will start following the informal leader in the group. If that informal leader, the only time that that survives is if the informal leader has enough power to make things happen. Right? We've all worked in organizations where we had maybe lower level people, but they had for what we call tribal knowledge. They had knowledge of a certain operation or a certain process or a certain situation, right? And they all knew that. You can't mess with that one. That gives them that informal power. Usually it's engineers, right? We have a young lady in our office right now, Kim, brilliant young girl. She runs our, anybody familiar with Salesforce, CRM program, Salesforce, right? She runs it like the back of her hand, okay? We can't lose her. It's impossible, because there's no way we can bring somebody and say, this is our company, this is our order entry, this is our process, and this is Salesforce. Pick it up and run with it. So she has, as being a leader, that informal power. So she doesn't have to worry about, or we don't have to worry about, any aspect coming into play here because she's got that. And I'm sure some of you in the back of your mind are going, I've got that, but I may or may not be able to use it in my company, right? So there's two things you can do. One, leave. Two, hope there's a change in management where you can. It's pretty simple. Every company I've ever been in, one of the reasons why maybe I don't want to say I've been a successful leader, I've just managed and led people in certain situations. I always said, above me, if you got problems with my team, yell at me. If you want to praise them, not me. I don't need anything else. I'm good. I'm good. Right? It's amazing how the words please and thank you can go miles in leadership and leading people. But we very rarely hear it, right? How often do we hear please or thank you? Right? My boss will send me messages, hey man, thanks for staying on top of this. I'm good, bud. It's all good. And I will when I had my team. Thanks for this, thanks for that. I always say please, I always say thank you. Okay? Partly because I was raised by a very short little Italian lady who had a wooden spoon. So if I didn't, I was in deep trouble. Okay? But the reality of it is, if we're demoralized, how do you trigger leadership in a person, or are you able to choose leaders? Oh, okay, I don't mean to get off track here, but Hannah's asking, how do you trigger leadership in a person or be able to choose leaders to hire? You know, Hannah, sometimes, some people, what's the saying? You guys need to help me out with this. Some leaders are born and some leaders have leadership thrust upon them, right? Right? Sometimes we don't know what we're made of, Hannah, until we actually have to show what we're made of. We have this inner strength that we never knew we really had. As far as hiring for leadership, or trying to choose leaders to hire, sometimes you're rolling the dice. Because that leadership might not work in the organization or the setup that you have. You have to match the person, the style, and the culture. Right? If you have a very relaxed style and a very relaxed culture, and you hire a hard-charging leader, they're going to bang into each other all day long. Vice versa. You have a hard-charging culture, and hire a laid-back, hey, how's it going, guys? Hey, we're leading, we're doing good, right? All that kind of crazy stuff, right? You're not going to get from point A to point B. So it really is a challenge, man, to answer your question. You know, Willard, that's a great question. Willard asks, if a manager reaches to the point of the Peter principle, is there hope to turn that manager into a real leader? Probably not, Willard, in my humble opinion. I don't think so. Once they're at that level, and they're more or less just, I don't know, don't want to grow up, they're kind of just going with the flow and being that part of it. I guess the analogy is, once you lose the image of being a leader in the eyes of your people, it's really hard to get that back. So I don't know if you can actually turn it. You could, my friend. Actually, no, Willard is actually an instructor here. It would take a lot of work and a long time. I would say bail. Larry?
Just as a comment on that, a thought came into my mind. The Peter Principle may work in favor of some companies because in many positions, somebody may be a very effective leader in a particular accounting department, sales department, whatever, but they may not be a good manager above that.
Exactly.
So you want that expert, and he's leading the team, and they're doing their stuff, and they're achieving all their goals,
Yep.
and you want them there forever.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And that's fine.
Anybody here in sales? I'm right there with you. It's tough, huh? How many times do we hire, or how many times do we promote the best salesperson, and they're a terrible
That's right.
manager, right? Happens all the time.
I've seen that.
Yeah, it happens all the time, right? Just because you can sell doesn't mean you can manage. Just because you can manage doesn't mean you can sell, right? I look at, and I've always done this in my entire professional career, I look at each person like they're in a little bubble. Okay, what's this person all about, right? And if I don't know their world, if I don't know their life, if I don't know what they're about, I can't manage. I can't lead them for darn sure. I don't know what motivates them. Some people are motivated by fear. Some people are motivated by, I don't want to fail. Some people by money. Some people by prestige. Some people by rewards. If I don't know what motivates you, I can't lead you, right? Now, granted, it's tough when you start talking 5, 10, 100, 300, 500, 600 people. It's kind of hard to figure that part out. And in that case, it gets a little bit more decentralized as far as leadership goes. But you have to know what makes people want to go from here to here. And some people, we all know, that are fine staying here. I'm good. Don't test me. I work for a company, people at the same job, same desk, doing the same job for 20 years. I can't fathom that. That's just how I am. I'm not saying it's wrong. I just have a hard time fathoming that. For that person, that's what their world was all about. It was perfect. Granted, different times, too. We're lucky if we can stay in a job for 20 months now, or 20 years. So Lewin's leadership style, autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire. Okay? Autocratic, the example I always give people, Martha Stewart, Donald Trump. It's got my name on it. This is the way we're doing it. Can I have your input? Yeah, I'm not going to use it. I just wanted to hear it. This is the way we're doing it. Okay? One of the great examples of an autocratic leader used to work with a guy named Chuck Yurko, going back now 20 years. Chuck was about 8 feet tall, 20 feet wide, had a voice like Paul Bunyan. Okay? So we had to do this thing one day. We had to do call blocks for outbound blocks of calls to customers. And he wanted the entire branch to do 1 hour at the same time. Okay. So Chuck comes in, sits down, and says, so, how are we doing with call blocks? So we're doing good. So, okay, he says, how are we doing? I said, well, I do half the branch in the morning for an hour, and then the other half of the branch in the afternoon. And he says, you know, I'm not really a big fan of breaking up things like that. He goes, why are you doing it? I said, well, you know, Chuck, really, it's 6 of one or half a dozen the other. He says, if it's 6 of one or half a dozen the other, do it my way. That's an autocratic leader, okay? You got it, Chuck. That's the way I'm going to do it. Therein lies your autocratic leader. Democratic leader, right? I would say, excuse me, any type of politician, right? Now, here's the question. Can a democratic leader be too democratic? Yeah. What happens? You water the whole thing down. You get so much input and so many ideas, you get nothing left, right? Okay? Good example is ways back, I was strange, I don't use this as a reference. I was watching a video on Aerosmith, how they wrote a song. Happened to be an Aerosmith fan. Okay, Steven Tyler's sitting at the piano, and he literally grabs his head. He says, if we keep tearing this apart, we're going to be left with absolutely nothing. Because he kept getting input and ideas from band members. We're not going to have anything left. So you can be too democratic. When you become too democratic, you become a doormat, right? People start, they start to manipulate you, do they not? They start knowing how to move things around or what to say to you and all that stuff. Then what happens is potentially you drop into laissez-faire. Whatever you want, Let me know. Let me know when it's done. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. Yes, ma'am.
What do you call it when the leader is willing to take whatever, makes it very clear that they're making the final decision, but they want to hear what everybody's got, and they take a little bit of everything and put it all together, and then it comes up, and everybody understands that they're going to make that choice. What would that be? What would that be?
A Democratic autocrat.
I was afraid you were going to say
That's
that.
exactly where I'm going with it. The Democrat, and that's fine. See, and therein lies the rub. That's why I keep trying to tell people that I coach on leadership. Good leaders are going to bounce back and forth between all of these. There's no, that's the right way, be that way. They're going to bounce back and forth. Okay? Right? President Obama takes on office. Okay? First black president we ever had. Had to be one kind of leader to get people to accept that. Let's be honest about it. Right? Then he turns around and says, wow, I got this economy thing I got to deal with. Came a different leader to deal with that. Wow, Congress is really pushing back coming left and right. I got to become a different leader to handle that. Oh, I got this Osama bin Laden thing. I got to become a different leader to handle that. So the trick is to be really good. You have to be able to move back and forth. You have to be able to shift through these things. Now, we talk about the Blake-Mouton grid. Okay, Blake and Mouton were two, I don't want to say they're professors, but they're two psychologists. And you can find it online, it's free. And they put together a little test to find out what type of leader you are. Whether you're a country club type leader, whether you're a very strong leader, and things like that. It's totally free. I gave it to one of my bosses in one of my old companies and came back and said, yep, that's them. No two ways about it. Okay? It's just a great way to figure out what your leadership style is. Because if you think about it, what your leadership style is what you'll gravitate to in other leaders. Make sense? Right? Now, it doesn't address these areas here, autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire. Those are completely different avenues. But let's say you're a democratic leadership. That's your style. You'd probably gravitate towards a democratic leader. Right? It'd be hard for you to work for an autocratic leader if your own style is democratic. Right? You just kind of grind against each other. It's the nature of the proverbial beast. So that's why when executives come in, think about this. New CEO comes into a company. Kind of happened in our company. Okay? What happens? All the old VPs, bye-bye. I'm bringing in my team that I know works together. I don't know you guys. Right? Happens every single time because you've got a lot of strong personalities, a lot of different leadership styles. So now what do we do? Well, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to bring in people I know they're going to take care of it for me. Happens every single time. So, the Hersey-Blanchard situational leadership style argues that you need to use different leadership styles depending on the maturity of the team members. Think about that. On the maturity of the team members. Okay? Now, as we talk about shifting between styles, does it make sense that sometimes you might need to use Hersey-Blanchard because of the team that you're leading? This is the God's honest truth. Okay? I know you're not going to believe this. I'm 51 years old. I know. Stop. I know. Stop. Okay? Right? But I had young people, 22, 23, 24, that I was managing and leading. And I literally said to myself one day, I don't get them. I never thought I would say those words. I never thought I was there. Like, I'm not going to say that kind of. I don't get them because they're in such a different world. Their maturity level is different. Their world is different. They're worried about is the world going to be here in 10 years. They're not even worried about the rest of it. Think about it. They grew up in a world of AIDS, right? 9/11. Their view of the world is completely different than my view of the world. So I had to learn to adjust my style to say, tell me about your style. I used to ask them, what shows do you watch? Why? Because I want to watch them and try to understand what you're all about. I would watch TV shows. I had no clue what was going on. Okay? But I kind of felt my way through it after a while and figured it out, right? And then I would share things back with them. Okay? Okay, here's another. Maybe you remember, anybody here know Abbott Costello, right? Lou Abbott, right? I used to give them the video. Watch this video about who's on first. That was what was funny when I was growing up. Okay? I said, that was hysterical. My son, right? He was maybe 9 years old. He's downstairs one day laughing hysterically at the TV. I come downstairs and said, what are you watching? Because I'm watching Ed, and Eddie. Okay? Right? So what's that? I'll answer you in 1 second, Lord. As soon as I finish this question, I don't mean to be ignoring you. I'm sorry. So I said, what's that? So I sat down. I said, Tyler, do you know what this is? He says, it's a cartoon. I said, yeah, I know that. But what is it? You know what this is? He said, no. I said, this is the Three Stooges. He said, who are the Three Stooges? I said, sit here for a second. I went to the store. Got a couple of Three Stooges DVDs. I'm not a big Three Stooges fan, but that's who they were. Brought them back. I said, try this. He laughed so hard, he was crying. He came upstairs, he said, Dad, Curly's hysterical. I said, yes, but you see the connection, right? I had to make a connection to get from where I was to where he was and bridge that gap. Because obviously at 6 or 7 years old, his maturity level is different. Now, obviously, I'm his father, I can lead him in a lot of different ways, you know, at the end of the day. But where it says, will someone gravitate to a certain leadership style due to the upbringing of the person? I really do think so, Willard, yes. Good or bad. I've seen people, give you an example. I've seen people whose mother and father, careless with money, weren't serious about anything, yet the children very serious about everything because they don't want to live that life, right? You see people that maybe a parent was an alcoholic and they said, you know what? I'm not living that life. I believe we are products of our environment. It's just a matter of how we want to get through the environment and come out the other side. And if we remember the scars we have on us and where they came from. Every single one of us lives that life every day. Work, home, family, friends, I don't care what it is, you will get some scars somewhere. It's a matter of whether it makes you better or whether it makes you worse. Does that make sense, Willard? It's a great question. I mean, I give you an example. I worked for 4 of the worst bosses in a row you could ever possibly imagine. I worked for a boss who laid people off on a Monday, asked them to come back Tuesday for an exit interview. I am not joking. Okay? I had a boss that said, have you ever read Mein Kampf? I said, Hitler's Mein Kampf? He said, yeah. I said, no. He said, he actually had some pretty good ideas. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay? That's what I had. I had bosses that were literally out of their minds. Now, could I have become that kind of boss? Right? Not in a million years. I remember my scars. I remember how they got there. I remember how I got from here to there and what it took to go from here. So I backed off and told him. I said, I'm not going to be that way. But other people could say, I'm going to be just like that because I'm angry, I'm taking it out. You know what? I'm not going to drag that rock around the rest of my life. Forget it, it's not worth it. It's just flat out not. Life's too short. Right? What is it? John Lennon said, life's what happens while you're making plans. Right? That's the truth. Everybody here, right? I tell you, I woke up one, like obviously 10 years ago, I woke up one day and said, wow, I'm 40. What the heck just happened? Where'd the 20s and the 30s go? They blew right by me. My son's 19 going to college. So you were this big yesterday. What the heck happened, right? So we have, how would you handle it? How would you handle as an employee being led by an uninspiring leader? Boy, that's a great question. I can tell you, me, based on who I am, I'd leave. I hate to say that. I hate to tell you, I'm not telling anybody to leave their job. But you know what? If you can't inspire me, then my respect for you drops, and when my respect for you drops, my level of what will come out of my mouth becomes an entirely different level, right? What are you going to do, fire me? You don't even know what you're doing now. I mean, it's really bad. So for me, that's what I would say, because the reality of it is, if they're uninspiring, the first question you probably have to ask yourself are they inspiring anybody else? Is it just me? Is it just not, am I wrong? And I'll ask people this, I have meetings every day, and I'll ask people, Charlie, am I just going down a rabbit hole on this? Am I right? They'll say, no, you've got to do it. Or no, you're way off the mark. Because I want to get somebody else's opinion. But if you've got 15 people in office and 14 are feeling inspired and you're not, maybe it's you. If they're all feeling uninspired, I would say you have to move on. Unless the job and situation is so good, you want to stay in. We've been there, right? We've all been in situations where we're going, man, I hate this job, but I got to stay, right? Not fun, right? That's why we go to school.
Or I hate my boss, but I love my job.
There you go. I hate my boss, love my job. But the boss won't be there forever. So hopefully that person will leave eventually, you know? And that's just the reality of the situation. Okay? I've been in places where, like I said, hate my boss, hate my job. My wife used to look at me, right? She doesn't anymore because, well, look at me. But anyway, okay. My wife used to look at me and says, why don't you just leave? I said, because I can't. Why? Because I was raised in a nuclear family. Dad takes care of everything. You want to talk about putting the pressure on my brain. I don't care if I have to work 6 jobs. It ain't happening. It's not going to happen. Not in a million years. So while I'd love to go to my boss and say, you're nuts, I'm out. Okay. Who has 2 thumbs and is quitting? This guy. You know? That kind of deal. Right? You know? So, but I would say, but you can't. But see, that shaped me. My father and his relationship with me shaped me. Not that we had millions and millions of dollars, but I certainly didn't go hungry, certainly didn't go cold. He always worked. I've been working since I was 13. It's like not to work. Okay? But the reality of it is, when we have this, John, as a leader, wouldn't you lead? As a leader, wouldn't you lead up? John's asking, as a leader, wouldn't you lead up, speak to the boss, and try to connect through vision? You can, John. It's just a matter of the reality of that situation is the level of open communication allowed. We all know what we want to say. We all know what we're going to have to say. In my company right now, what I want to say is what I can say, and we're done. That's my level I'm working. But in some cases, you go, you know what? I want to go there, but man, I can't tell him that. I can't tell her this. I can't say she's a that. I can't say he's a this. You have to pull back. And that's where it becomes a bit of a challenge. So, you can speak to the vision. You can speak to the vision and speak to what it's all about. But if that person's above you and feels threatened by you, now you've changed the table on the cards totally. Now you're going down another avenue that, quite frankly, might cause you some grief, to be very honest with you. So it's just a matter of how open communication you can have. Because sometimes a leader wants people to say, hey, you know what? I'm not getting it from you. Why not? I didn't know. If that open communication is there, run with it. If it's not, be very careful about how you go about it. So that's really the advice I want to give you. So, it's kind of hard for everybody to see. I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of get out of the way over here a little bit. Okay? Over here we have need for support, need for direction. Whether it's low or high, whether it's low or high. Is it supporting, coaching, directing, or delegating? So if I've got a low need for support and a low need for direction, I'm delegating all day long, right? If I have a high need for direction and a high need for support, I'm coaching all day long. It depends on the maturity level of the people that you have. So just in that slide alone, we say, wait a minute, you just can't be one type of leader, right? It can be multiple types of leaders, or multiple styles, okay? So then we have the path goal theory. My apologies for this again. Basically what this is saying is you have leadership behavior. Leadership behavior is trying to get to these outcomes. But it's got these forces driving on it. Environmental contingency factors and subordinate contingency factors. Basically, what's going on in the world, what's going on in my people. Okay? And of all of these, has anybody here heard of the term locus of control? Very interesting concept. Okay? I can tell people, if I find out what their locus of control is, based on the situation that comes up, I can tell you what their locus of control is. We have two, internal, external. Okay? An internal locus of control, if something goes wrong, I did it wrong. I wasn't successful. I didn't do all the work I should have done. Same respect, something goes right, man, it was all me. Yeah, boy, I knocked it out of the park. External locus of control, something goes wrong on the team, didn't make it happen. Something goes right, the team won't go together. You can tell people's locus of their control, right? You can see who they are as people. Isn't it interesting when people say, I didn't screw up, wasn't me, right? You have an internal locus of control. External locus of control, that is what you really want, is if there's a mistake, you have an internal locus of control. If there's success, let them have an external locus of control. Very few people can shift between those two thought processes, right? You ever have a boss that had an internal locus of control, right? Now think about it. If you're talking to your boss, this kind of goes back to what Laura was saying here in just a little bit. I'm sorry, not Laura, I'm sorry, John. If your boss has an internal locus of control, that's going to guide how you try to talk through problems with that person, right? Because you sit there and say, well, the reason why we're not really getting anywhere is you're not leading. What do you mean I'm not leading you? Oh, and off it goes down a tangent, right? The trick to surviving corporate America is managing your boss. Knowing what leader they are, what the tricks are, what the triggers are, all that stuff, managing all of that, that's the trick. I manage my boss every day. Granted, he's a very easy guy to manage. I know what he wants, I know what he needs, we have a great relationship. Sometimes, though, how many times do we say to ourselves, I'm not telling my boss that, right? They don't need to know about that. Can we do this without them finding out? Yeah, we're good, right? It's nature of the beast. But if you know your boss has an internal locus or an external locus of control, now you know how to work with that person a little bit better, right? Most bosses, I hate to say this, have an internal locus of control. I didn't screw up, or I was successful doing what I did with my team. Okay? It's just the nature of the beast, especially if they have a big ego. But not. But that's the reality of it. We talk about the path forward. Then we talk about the 6 emotional leadership styles. Visionary, coaching, affiliative, which means close connection, democratic, pace-setting, and commanding. It also shows how each style can affect the emotions of your team members. Now think about it. In just one leadership style, we're talking 6 different attributes. So, sometimes I'm going to be democratic, sometimes I'm going to set a pace, sometimes I'm going to be commanding. So you see how true leaders are able to adapt and adjust. You would think people are just leaders. They just kind of naturally do their thing. The really good ones, they've got this stuff figured out. They know what they've got to do, when they got to do it. Right? You watch really good leaders. Somebody asks the leader a question, they'll pause before they answer because they're thinking about what they want to say. I hate to say this, politicians do it all the time. Right? Anytime a politician gets into trouble, they spoke off the top of their head. Am I right? Right? Whoops, shouldn't have said that. Right? George Bush was infamous for it. Whoops, shouldn't have said that, George. It probably wasn't too good. Okay? But the reality of it is, you just said what he believed. But the reality of it is, you have to think about what you want to say and think about what you want to do in a situation when you do it and why you do it. And as you start to see these styles, hopefully you guys are starting to go, well, that's that boss. Well, that boss has got that. And as you understand your boss, I hate to say it this way, now you can manipulate the situation, right? Anybody here have a boss with a big ego? You pump that up, right? They're happy as a clam. Just keep pumping it up. Awesome, boss. Couldn't have done it without you, buddy. You're the man, boss. You are the man, buddy. Right? Let's go out and have lunch. Come on. Right? We've all had them. Okay? They tell me in my office today, they say, we're moving to new offices. They say, it's talking to the senior vice president. She says, hey, well, I'll let you know, in the new building, you're not going to have an office. We're going to have cubicles. Only the vice president's going to have an office. I said, just pay me. I don't care what you put me. I don't. I could care less. But some people have a real problem with this. I have to have an office. Why? Why? You gauge your leadership, your ability, your management, your level by whether you have a door? That's silly, isn't it? I mean, think about the end of the day, isn't it nuts? Pay me, leave me alone. That's all I want. I'm real happy. Just put me in the corner like a mushroom. I'm a happy guy. Now, because I'm the trainer, and I have the training room, I have the biggest office in the company. If I want to go there, I'm going to tell them that, but I just want to be able to get my job done. And don't we all, at the end of the day, just want to get our job done, just want to be valued for the job we do, and just want a leader to show us where we're going. I'll help us get there, but give me the big picture. Okay? Life's a journey, not a destination. Fine. Help me along with the journey. I'll get us and help us get to the destination. Makes sense, right? For the most part. I hope. Okay, I keep an eye on the clock here, okay? Flame Holton Randall's Leadership Style Matrix. Okay? Shows for you the best leadership style to use, how capable people are of working autonomously, how creative or programmable the task is. So when we talk about that, okay, this is another one that's kind of hard, sorry. Capability of autonomy, programmability. So if something has a high level of autonomy, and this is inverted now, and a low level of programmability, so you have to look at consensus, laissez-faire. It's telling you this is what you want to try to use in these situations, in these circumstances. Now, by now you're saying, gee, wow, you've given us like 1,800 of these. How am I supposed to remember them all? You're not. Okay? You're really not. All you have to do is identify and go, wait a minute. Before I say this, I'm going to think about what I've got going on. Think about what we talked about. You now know, I'm going to look at the situation, what I'm saying. Is people mature, immature? External locus control, internal locus control. Right? Is this something I can delegate? Something I can be democratic about, autocratic about? Am I right? Look at all this stuff you've learned a little bit, all this subliminal stuff, right? I'm kind of good at this after a while, for 10 years, whatever it is, right? Kind of get my stuff figured out, okay? So that's really what this is all about. We're trying to understand, at the end of the day, what we're all about. Okay? Good leaders know themselves. Okay? They know themselves. I know that at times I will blow off tasks that don't inspire me as a leader. I know it. I luckily have people around me that'll pick up those tasks. Otherwise, I'd crash and burn. I have a young lady that works for me. She's always 2 steps ahead of me. I don't know how she even knows how to do it. I can't work without her. Okay? So really what we're talking about at the end of the day is trying to think about what you do has far greater impact than what you say. Think about that. All the stuff we've talked about today, what you do has a far greater impact than what you say. right? Like a picture's worth 1,000 words, okay? Well, I'm sorry?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. What you do, right? I mean, it's taken me, I have about 6 or 7 people who work for me, and I have 2 people that will email me. Every time they're going to make a decision, they'll send me an email. You okay with this? Is this okay? So I sat them both down. I said, look, I'm going to give you guys a real simple aspect of my leadership style. What's that? I would rather you ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. I literally sat them down and said, why? I said, because if you don't fail, you don't learn. Think about that, right? If you don't fail, you don't learn. I had a gentleman working for me in Tucson a couple companies ago. Changed jobs a lot, didn't he? And his name was Raul. And Raul was our warehouse manager. So I go down there and I meet him, and I come back, and the president of the company says, what do you think? I said, how come we haven't promoted Raul to branch manager yet? We never thought of this. The guy's sharp as a tack. What are we waiting for? So we promoted him, right? I had to go down there a month later and say, Raul, can you do me a favor? He said, what's that? I said, make a mistake. He said, why? I said, you're so afraid to make one, I can't coach it. You've got everything covered because you're more worried about messing up. It's okay to crash and burn. You're not going to do anything that's going to bring this company to its knees and have us close our doors. It's not going to happen. But we learn, right, from our mistakes. We learn from our experiences. So leaders learn from their experiences. It's just a matter whether they want to become a good leader or bad. You want to inspire people, you want people to be motivated, you want people to be pumped up and happy, or I just want to beat the living heck out of them 24/7 so they'll do exactly what I say when I say so. I would say Donald Trump probably falls in the second category, right? I don't think you want to walk into Donald Trump's office and go, I didn't get that done, Donald. Huh? Don't think that's happened, all right? Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think you get to be quite that big by being that way about it. But the reality of the situation is all these different aspects and all these different things we're talking about. I'm sorry, Howard. John writes, are you familiar with Simon Sinek's lead from the Why or Leaders Eat Last? If so, what do you think of this leadership approach? John, I don't know. Oh, say sorry. Why? Sorry, not lead. John, I've never heard of that approach. I'm assuming, based on what you're telling me, that they want their people, their individuals, the people that they lead, to be out in front of them and be able to actually take all those rewards and they take it at the end of the day. I'm assuming, based on what you're asking me, John, that's where it's at. But no, I haven't, but I'd like to read it, quite frankly. But I'm assuming that's what the situation is. A good leader would take class.
He does a talk on YouTube.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, you can just look that up. Simon Sinek's Lead from the Why.
Okay.
Or Leaders Eat Last.
I'll have to look into that, because that's a new one on me.
About 45 minutes long.
Okay, I can do that. So, wrap this up almost down. Look at that. How good is that, huh? Telling you, right? The reality of it is, guys, okay, leaders are made, they're not perfect. They realize where they've been, they realize where they want to go. Great leaders lift people up around them, right? Great leaders take people from where they are to where they need to be. I came on board a company, one of the companies that turned around sales-wise. The way his program was set up, your salespeople got paid $60,000 a year. Once they brought in $240,000 worth of gross profit, they began to make commission. Thought process being $240,000 covered $60,000. Okay, fine. I said, I can work with that. I can help these people with that. However, if you only bring in $140,000, the next year, that $100,000 you were shy, boom, gets added on to the next year. So now you have to do $340,000 next year. So I sat in his office and said, can I ask you a question? I said, are you crazy? He said, what? I said, they didn't make it the first year. How are they going to make it the second year? You put them in a hole to start with. That's the way we're doing it. Okay? I had 3 salespeople. All 3 of them, the first year I was there, caught up to the money they were down, started making commission. He comes in my office. Wow, that was awesome. That was great. I said, go talk to them. They're the ones that did it. They just need someone to listen, support, help. And they acted on what I gave them to work on, or what I thought to look at. So they took where they had to go. Don't pat me on the back, pat them on the back. Because think about it. That's a big turnaround. One guy was $380,000 in the hole. He made it up in a year and made commission back. He walked in my office, he said, I want to thank you. I said, for what? He said, for listening. I said, all good. And I looked at him and said, one thing I'll leave you guys with. As he walked out, I said, can I say one last thing? He said, yeah. I said, I would invest my time in people that aren't going to work. I would invest my time in people that don't care about where they are and where they want to be. I said, they care. That's why I invest in my time. I appreciate you guys.